Hi and welcome. Welcome back to another Onkruid video and the start of a little series on this channel. A little series within the series of the Let's Learn Something series. What we're gonna do is we're gonna discuss the book Weg met Piekeren, or Away with Worrying and Action as a Remedy by Filip Raes. Now the title is a bit misleading, getting away from worrying. It's not something you get away from that easily, but in the book Filip Raes explains to us how we can behave in a different way towards our worrying behavior, how we can change our view on worrying and deal with it in a different way. Filip Raes is a Belgian, Leuven-based clinical psychologist. He is also a cognitive behavioral therapist, and he is also a teacher at the University of Leuven, where I studied. I had some classes from him, and I thought he was always a very interesting lecturer who was always very profound, authentic, and one of the most beautiful things about this class is that he always said what he had to say, and he didn't try to make it too wide, or he didn't try to include all these different topics that aren't really related to the subject matter. No, straight to the point, the information you need to actually do something with it in clinical practice. The series is going to be structured chapter per chapter. We're just going to discuss every chapter in a separate video, and I'm not going to go too crazy with it. I'm not going to be walking around. I'm not going to make a PowerPoint presentation out of every chapter. No, this is truly going to be something you can listen to if you want. It's kind of a podcasty style. But either way, I'm not going to spend too much time editing, including all these funny little clips or whatever. It's going to be a nice and light-hearted way of looking at the book and its contents together. And I'm not going to be losing a lot of time worrying about whether that is the most appealing format to share this knowledge with you. I'm not gonna be stuck worrying about that. No, I'm gonna be active, I'm gonna undertake actions, and I'm just gonna make videos and put them out. The first chapter is a bit of an introduction. It spans from page 8 up until 14, so it's really quite short, which is why this first video is gonna be quite short as well, probably. And its title, roughly translated, basically means the world is full of people that worry. And it's true, of course. I think we all know a bunch of people that worry, and most of us are probably people that worry ourselves, right? I think everybody worries at some point in their life. But for some people, this gradation of worrying, they are further to the negative side of the spectrum. They worry quite often, and worrying quite often can lead to, or at least contribute to, the development of emotional problems like depression and anxiety disorders. And if it's so negative, why do we all do it, right? Why are we all such worriers? And a part of the explanation lies in the evolutionary side of things. We all know about Darwin's theory of natural selection, and it's believed that worrying is of course related to anxiety, being afraid of stuff and having your guard up. And well, that is of course something that has evolutionary benefits. People that were afraid of threats, that kept their guard up, that kept looking around whether there was not a predator around, people that were a bit anxious in some situations survived better than people who were just laying low all the time, very relaxed, very chill, even when there was a leopard right on their doorstep, you know? So that's why, in an evolutionary perspective, anxiety is actually beneficial in some contexts. However, the world has become a lot safer than the world our ancestors that developed that anxiety lived in. And our alarm system inside our brain, mainly the amygdala if you really want to know, is a bit overactive. It's a bit too sensitive for the times we live in now. And that's why some people will also get stressed and anxious about things like office work that piles up, or an important email or a bill they have to pay. There's no real physical danger there, but because of our stone time mind, as Pieter Adriaans calls it, a professor of philosophy here in Leuven, a stone time mind, you know? It still needs time to adapt, it still needs time to evolve. But in some ways, having that sensitivity is beneficial as well, because it's better to have a bunch of false alarms than to miss the real danger. Whether we worry more than people in the past did, that's hard to say, especially because the definition of worrying is a dynamic concept, of which we still today don't have one specific definition that applies for every single person. And even as shortly as 50 years ago, people will have thought about worrying in a very different light already. Maybe they didn't even speak of the concept of worrying in a clinical psychological context. And of course also measurements. Not only did questionnaires into worrying probably not even exist a couple of years ago, but they were definitely not the same as the questionnaires we would have today. And if worrying hasn't been measured all that thoroughly the last couple of years, so we don't have any data about that, you could look at the effects of worrying. Are we more depressed and anxious than we were earlier? And scientific evidence doesn't seem to think that way. There's no real significant evidence that anxiety disorders and depressive disorders have really been more common in the past couple of years than the years way before that. Unless if we're looking at American research into American young people, because there both depressive disorders and suicides are a bit more prevalent, especially in females, and that's where social media also plays an important role. Which is not to say that social media is always going to be bad for your mental health. It's a very complex relationship. Small disclaimer, whenever you hear me say things like that, it's most of the times directly from the book. If I give my own opinion on something, I'll try to make it clear. We are not going to be able to get rid of our worrying symptoms that quickly. We are not going to be able to just flip the switch and stop worrying forever, but we are able to try and learn how to deal differently with that part of our own personality, that behavior that we have, the worrying behavior. Try to have a different attitude, different feelings towards the worrying behavior, so that it cannot lead to its mediating role in transforming stress into chronic stress, depressive problems, anxiety problems, sleep problems, bodily problems, all those things, right? Break up that relationship by looking at our worrying behavior differently. For this book and the next couple of chapters, my man Filip bundled knowledge from different therapeutic and psychology schools, different schools of thought. For example, acceptance and commitment therapy. I know that Filip Raes, the author of this book, is very much into Russ Harris's work, on whom I already made a video on this channel as well. We're also going to look at things from behavioral activation therapy. Wouldn't you know, it's something I made a video about in the past as well, frequently used in depression. Mindfulness, hype in the 21st century, but it definitely has some beneficial things to take in for caregiving and psychological well-being as well. So he also includes some mindfulness influences in there. Then finally, solution-focused psychotherapy, which is basically you don't focus on the problem and the cause of the problem and the impact of the problem only, but you also look at future perspectives and where you actually want to go, the goals you want to achieve. And then finally, exposure, a form of cognitive behavioral therapy where you, for example, have a person that is anxious towards spiders, hold spiders until the anxiety kind of fades away. What he states in the final paragraph of the introduction, and what I also very much appreciate about him, is what I told you already. This is quite a short book. It's not that thick. It only counts about 160 pages of actual material, I think, something like that. And that is because he wants to bundle the essentials. He really wants to give us the essentials about worrying and how to deal with it differently, and the essentials that both you yourself can use and a clinical psychologist can use in their practice. He wants people to be able to immediately do the things he advises to do in the book and not have to go and look at rolls of parchments deep in the dungeons of scientific literature. He wants us to actually be able to do something with the book immediately, right now. And that's beautiful. That's a very nice approach of writing a self-help book or any type of book in that matter. Don't ring around the rosy. Don't kind of just go into all these side tracks and try to include all different types of subjects you find interesting. No, plan out a course for your book at the start and then stay on that course. And the course Mr. Filip Raes tried to set out with this book is exactly the course we are gonna take together. It's a journey we're gonna follow together, and in the next video we're gonna discuss the next chapter, chapter 1, about people not changing. Or, well, maybe a little bit. If you want to know more about that, stay tuned for the rest of this series. A small little book report, a little reading together. I don't know what you want to call it. Either way, we're looking at Filip Raes, Weg van het Piekeren, away from the worrying. Thanks a lot for watching this first episode. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.